Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us again for our second episode of Coffee with a Side of Healing. Round of applause to everyone here, our lovely co-host, host, and guest. Today, we're going to have an awesome show packed for everyone. I think it's going to be super exciting. Uh, I do want to try to reflect and remember not to do the things we did on our very first episode. I'm sure you could tell that we were all a little nervous and a little anxious, but I feel that we're all ready to go. So with that said, I do want to start it off by allowing everybody a minute to introduce themselves and give us a little bit of background. So um, let's see here. I want to start off with Ruth. Ruth, why don't you introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background?
Hola, everybody. My name is Ruth Iscareño. I am your friendly parent advocate. I have three resilient children that have had mental health issues and diagnosis. I work with the Department of Mental Health, and I am your friendly parent advocate with the FSP team, navigation team, and with our DMH administration for Service Area 7. So that's me. And as we get to talking, you'll get to know more about me.
Go ahead, Ruth, pick somebody else.
Let me pick Laura.
Woohoo! Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Kerr, Lori Kerr, or even Lorena, whatever you want to call me. I'm here now, but I'm with the Peer Resource Center, and I am a community health worker, and I love assisting individuals. Uh, um, provide community members with linkage and warm handouts to community organization. I create, facilitate online support groups and curriculums. And, like Ruthie said, you'll get to know me a little bit more as we continue our chat. And for popcorn, Manny.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Manuel Rosas, Manny. I am the Service Area 7 Chief with the Department of Mental Health. I am an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker by profession, but I'm also a community member. I was born and raised in the Boyle Heights area and been working for the department for many years and super excited to be here with this amazing group of folks and just talking about just your amazing stories. So welcome, everyone. And I guess I will pick Miss Erica Corral.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, everyone. So, like Manny said, my name is Erica Corral. I am your guys' co-chair for SPA 7, for SALT 7. It's a pleasure. I already have 13 months, going on 14 months. No longer the rookie, like everyone said. But it's also been a great honor to serve the community, serve the spa that see me grow, and serve the spot where my family lives there. So I'm happy to be here and being able to collaborate with everyone. And I hope you guys really get a little cafecito or get like a cup of water, a tea, whatever it is, grab someone and sit down to listen to this great podcast because you feel it. We're about to make some good charla here. So I'll pick my counterpart, which Mr. Rick Pulido.
Oh, bueno, gracias, Erica, y bienvenidos a todos. Me llamo Ricardo Pulido. My name is Rick, nickname, and you've been watching me on probably the movies lately, running with the Ricardos. That was, me in my alias days. And I just want to say, of course, welcome to everybody to our podcast here today with the Great Salt 7. As my colleagues have said, we're all here to serve. We're going to have a fun time today, and we're going to have some interesting chats about, a few good things regarding our loved ones, our individuals, and our peers. I have a family of 7 children, Modesta and I. Modesta is the head of the household and runs things around here and keeps me in check. And guess what? I'm going to give you a teaser. Jaime and Manny probably know this, or I'm telling you now to all our audiences out there. She will be on a future podcast doing some music and some breakdowns of where she's come from with the promotoras and with DMH and NAMI and everything she does. So we're looking forward to Modesta as a sneak preview. You'll be hearing from her and playing her guitarra and me in the back with the congas, Ricky Ricardo style. But all kidding aside, seriously, I just want to welcome everybody. We have 7 children, 4 grandkids. My birthday was last week, so I'm 68 years young. So all you guys that know out there, hey, I'm in the late 60s, baby, and I'm feeling good, just like in the back in the days when I grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Uh, so I will end with saying that café, café con a little sanación, like dijo Erica. That's what it's going to be all about today. And I look forward to sharing some of our stories. I have a lot to share with you today, and so is my colleague. So I won't, without further ado, I'll pass it on to my friend and compañera Alicia Llamas. Alicia?
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Llamas. I am the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator for Service Area 7 Administration. What that basically means is that I am out in the community doing some outreach, promoting mental health services, attending community events, giving out a lot of different information and resources, at times linking individuals that are seeking services to our various directly operated clinics and DMH contracted clinics. I have been with the department for 10 years. January 9th was my 10th year. And I have been in mental health for 26 years, starting off my career in mental health with Enki in the city of Commerce. I'm very thrilled to be here and with these wonderful people and, just hearing from them, sharing their stories of resilience and commitment. So thank you all for being here. Thank you.
And very quickly, I'm not sure if everybody noticed, but I muted everyone just to try to prevent any issues with Alicia's mic. So if you can go ahead and unmute yourselves, that would be awesome. Gracias, gracias. Thank you, Alicia. And I guess I'm gonna go ahead and introduce myself, even though no one popcorn me. Thank you, everybody. I've been very sensitive this last month. I don't know what it is, Alicia. Um, did you
Sorry.
raise your hand? No, no. I know you did it on purpose. It's fine. By the way, Alicia is our ghostwriter today. She is here, but we can't see her. But I am going to work on getting that together because we need Alicia's presence here as well, visually as we do verbally. But again,
Mm-hmm.
my name's Jaime Gomez. I am a community health worker with Service Area 7 Administration. I am the baby in this department. I've been with, I think I'm going on my 3rd year this year at the department. However, I've been working in the mental health field for, I want to say, over 20 years. I also had a long stint at Inky, which is a provider. I am a new father. My daughter turned 2 in December. She is amazing. And I'm just really grateful to be here in this place with everybody here, have such a great team. Uh, Erika, Mr. Pulido, Manny, Ruth, and Laura, all really great people. And just, I'm glad that we're here. I'm glad that we're going to have this second podcast episode and really have this
Woo!
conversation.
Second podcast. That's huge.
I know. Just wait till we get to episode number 10. But I wanted to say, today, what inspired today has been several different things. I am currently going through something called IPS training, which is a training for community members and peers, individuals with lived experience. And I want to share with you guys that the word peer to me is something new, or a community member. And I've kind of been learning how that works or what that is, and kind of thinking in the greater scope. Um, in my head, I was like, if I was an individual who was not aware of the Department of Mental Health and the services they provide and all these things, how would I describe what being a peer is, or a community member, right? And for me personally, I consider myself an individual as a community member or someone with lived experience. Although I have never received services, I've never been to consejeria. I've had circumstances or situations in my past that could have affected me as an adult and as a child, and have brought me to this great conclusion, right? And so the idea is of this podcast really kind of explaining to the community members what it is that we have to offer. What is a peer? What is a community member? And how do you describe that in your own words? And I'm not sure if one of you, Rick, Erica, Ruth, would like to share a little bit about your story and what that might mean to you, what the word peer or community member or how you identify, what again that brings to you.
That's an
It,
awesome question. That and I know that the question is towards them, but I want to be the brave enough to talk about it, because for me, I stepped out of the closet. If you were to ask me about 3 years ago, what does the word peer mean, or if I identified as, I would tell you, no, I'm someone with visible and invisible disabilities, because that's acceptable, right? You can't see certain ones, but I also took the IPS training, which was what opened up my eyes and my heart to find a better definition of what an actual peer is. And for me, I'm learning. I still struggle with the word a bit, but it's more of an acceptance now. This is who I am, and with with uh, with talking about that and sharing that, I've had in my life, I've had various types of trauma, and I have had to overcome with various tools and support. But unfortunately for me, that did not come until in my late 40s, well, in my early 40s, and now I'm in so for me, it's been an honor and a privilege, being part of learning, healing, learning, and finding new tools uh, to embrace and recover from that trauma. But for me, being a peer is not only someone with lived experience, it gives me hope that people like me uh, get better. Um, there's In Japan, there's a tradition where broken vases are mended with gold. And if you were to be looking at me, you're like, "Oh man, I don't want to mend that vase." Because but I would be in Japan, I would be so much money because it's so many broken pieces and so much gold. And that's what, for me, I've embraced the word peer, or I'm embracing the word peer to be, is that broken glass that has a lot of value. The more brokenness I have, the more gold that goes into it. So for me, that's my new definition of what a peer is.
that's beautiful. That's a
How
beautiful
beautiful is
analogy.
that? Wow.
You know, Laura, the IPS training, you know how long it goes, right? I was in it today. Anyhow, it's a long training, and to come out of that and hear you say the way you did, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I myself am learning to learn, to listen. I had a great supervisor once told me, Jaime, you have two ears, one mouth, and two eyes for a reason. And it took me a little while for it to sink in, but when it finally did, I'm like, oh, okay, she's telling me to be quiet and to listen. Yes. But with that said, Ruth, Rick, I'm not sure if either of you feel comfortable sharing.
We'll let Rick eat his lunch while I talk. Good afternoon. Like in my introduction, and thank you, Laura. And because a lot of people do interpret peer in a different way, and I totally do. I'm more the old school way because I really consider myself a parent advocate, and that would be a parent peer. So I really do not, I shouldn't say do not. I feel there is a big difference because what peers do, yes, we do the same thing. We support each other, but with the parent, it's more about the children, and we're talking about children from 0 to 18 and even older. And we're talking about, I know we don't use Tay anymore, but we are talking about transitional age youth, and it's a cultural thing because I still have my Tay here at home, and I'm still raising them, and just because they get older, their mental health issues tend to get better, but then we work with stuff that goes on. But as a parent advocate, I have been blessed with the gift, ese don que me dieron, that God gave me to be able to help other people. And I just never knew, even being young in high school, in my 20s, any of that, like you said, being a good listener. And it's just, I grew up in a chaotic family, typical Latina family. It's like my dad was an alcoholic. My mom, was abusive. There were things, we'd get the chancla, or get chased by the mop, or whatever it was, the typical things that is growing up as we are. But growing up, me having my children and learning that they were different, that is where I learned all that, and being able to speak English and Spanish, and just like really helping other people go through that. And with me, I started young. I was 17 when I was pregnant in high school, and we're going back in 85, but I still graduated. I just didn't get to walk on stage because my son was born on graduation day, but I got my diploma. I went to school pregnant from September to June. I went to prom pregnant. I went to homecoming. I was still going to, I did everything I still needed to do. And I did. But having my son young, I knew that he was different. He was like one of those commercials where you see the Energizer bunnies, it's just like, go, go, go. It's like, you plug in my son to that, you got it. So that was him. And so I learned that early on, actually, very early on, when he was 3, that he had attention deficit hyper disorder. He was diagnosed, and I went through that whole journey with him with school. And it was just a journey and a half. And it's been a struggle. It's just from individual educational plans, from therapists to medication to private school, public school, non-public school, all those choices that us as parents and parents who have children with mental health issues come across. And and that's also being different, like when you talk about peers, because adult peers don't go through that. They're just peers to peers adult. But with children and being a parent, these are other factors. You got school issues, you got um, mental health issues, because you're still the parent. So you're still making the decisions for your children. At the same time, it's like, am I making the right decision? Medication, yes. Medication, no. This therapy, that therapy. Sometimes you get Department of Child Family Services called on you, not intentionally, but it just happens, because there's things that sometimes you can't, control your child. I mean, back then we're talking, I'm going to age myself now, we're talking about in the, early 80s, 90s, and now we're in the 2000s and something. So it's like things have changed, but things not have not totally changed. I still strongly advocate, strongly advocate for children. And being a parent partner, I know I started, actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually worked at the Optimus Boys Home on hand staff. So I worked in a group home. I
In
worked in a
Highland
group.
Wow.
Park, the one up in Highland Park.
Yes, the one up in Highland Park, right down the street. I walked to work, and those boys used to watch. It's like, there she goes, there she goes, because that's what happens when you work in that setting. It's just the boys have nothing but time to observe you and just
Very
watch
true.
it. Yeah, and
You know,
I did some interpreting too, and I learned a lot. What I learned was like, half of these families do not belong here. Half of these kids should not be here. And it was very interesting, because it's just, even back then as an advocate, not knowing that I was an advocate, I was even causing problems at the at
you
the
know what's
Optimus
funny
Boys Home.
about that, Ruth? That a lot of the things you mentioned, you probably see me smiling and nodding my head, but I think
Yes.
in our community, not just within Service Area 7, right, but in our community in terms of Hispanic, Latinos, uh, so many of those things are common. What you
Uh-huh.
mentioned earlier, right? The chancla, things that you wouldn't
Yeah.
even think are abuse, right? Or look at you, you're just a crybaby. Stop crying,
Oh,
right? Or
oh yeah, when you went to church, it's just like you would get pinched if you weren't, saying your prayers, or if you and Incate, kneel down. It's time to kneel down, and you're laughing because you have your brother in the front turning around making faces at you, in the pew, and you're the one getting in trouble. So it's just, and then being the oldest of 6. So yeah, it was my responsibility. So I'm like the second mom. So making sure,
Hey,
Oh
because
yeah.
if they
we're
got
all
in trouble,
familiar with our
I got
moms.
in
Like they
trouble.
could be surgical with those chanclas.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
It
yeah.
it was a skill for a mom to throw the chancla, managed to hit 2 kids, and it still boomeranged back to her hand. And I never figured out how she did that.
you know
That's a special chancla. That's the one with the tire on the bottom. That's
Oh
the
yeah.
why.
beauty is we can all laugh about it, right? But it's funny that in a sense, like all these things connect us, right? It's part of
Right.
it's part of what make us community members or individuals with lived experience. But it's so interesting that in our community that's so prevalent, right? It's something that it's like the majority of Hispanic people I know could share a similar story,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's super interesting. I'm not sure, Rick, if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quickly that she hit on some nerve cells, man, real quick. And I used to I come from a family of 11. I grew up in a little barrio called Cypress Park, which is northeast LA,
Oh
up there
right.
by
Okay.
Highland Park, which
Next
is
to us over here.
next
Yeah.
to Optimus Home, next to Eagle Rock, next to all Lincoln Heights. That was all my barrio. I roamed it all on my bicycles. We used to cruise all over the place. My mom had 11 kids, and what we did was, we had to be careful because we
Right.
would, if we did something that was, gonna upset her, she would say, "Okay, cuando llega tu papá, vas a ver, Ricardo, tu cintarazos time." And I hear the cintarazos, that means I get whipped with the belt, or if I was really bad, like my brother Artie always was, you're gonna get whipped with the manguera. He
Oh,
goes,
Oh
okay,
yeah.
Arturo, you got a manguera coming, and Ricardo, you got a cintarazos coming. And then if you're really, really bad, you get hit with the ivy. You go outside. We had ivy on our
Wow.
fence. You pull out an ivy. A little one would hurt more, or a big one, which whipped you. Uh, that was back in the day, and it wasn't abuse. It was called discipline, stern discipline. Now, it's all about mail, email, and letters, and timeouts, and kids going through their different disciplinary processes. But I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but I love it because that kept me in check. I was a good young man, and my peers. When I heard the word peers, I was in college. That was my first touch of peers. Then when I got to NAMI about 13, 14 years ago, and my two kids, one had a trigger by taking meth at San Diego State, and the other one had a trigger at high school, Carson High, 12th grade, with all his friends. Smoked a little bit of marijuana with peyote, which is like a mushroom
Place.
sprinkled
Yeah.
on it, and they both triggered into Ricky got schizophrenia affective, and Gracie got into what they call bipolar. And both of them, by the way, now are in full recovery. Ruth and a few of you who know me, and well, Manny and everybody knows my story here, but for the folks out in the audience in the podcast, they went full route, full recovery, full recuperation takes day by day. And once in a while, if they don't take their medications or if they go off a little bit, they can have an episode. But
Mm-hmm.
thank God, both of them are not in denial. Both of them accept their illness. Both of them were triggered through drugs. So maybe it wasn't as much as like when I was a kid, when mom used to get mad, like you said, chanclas, she used to throw that milk. And if she had that carton of milk and you did something that was bad, everybody say, "What? Stay away from mom because she's having a bad day today." She threw the milk carton at Ricky, almost hit him, on the shoulder and the head. But I had to, I was very good at doing this. So, long story short, I knew how to duck, and I knew how to be careful and mind my p's and q's. And that's sometimes all you need in life is to realize, know your parameters, know your boundaries. And it's not easy with the social media and the world that we live in today. The peers, I call them loved ones, by the way. When I came to NAMI, they told me peers, peers, peers. And I said loved ones, loved ones, loved ones. And I said individuals. Recently, Laura and some other ladies told me in the last few months, individuals. Mr. Blake, what do you guys like being called? And she'll tell you that story when she speaks. But
Mm-hmm.
real quickly, I didn't like to say, what do you like being called? I just said, hey, I'm a man, I'm a person, da da da. But what are the other words, adjectives, or pronouns that can we use for peers? It's stuck in my mind. And today I'm sharing with you, I like individuals, I like loved ones, and I like just people that we're all human beings. We're all here, we're one race. Like Manny always tells me, we're all here together, Polito. Good, bad, and indifferent. Let's do it. So with that, I'll pass it on because I'm just there's a phone call in the back, but I'm gonna mute that right now. But I'll pass it on and let you know that peers, hey, peers to me are the love of my life. They're the backbone of our department. They keep us going, and they will always be in our lives. And my loved ones are doing well because we stay with them day by day. Ruth knows about this, and all you guys
Oh
know our
yeah.
family. We're very open book, and we're very conscious that we all help each other out. Nobody's alone. That's one of the mottos. You're never alone. So please forgive me, but I love you guys. I love DMH and Nami in the house and Salt 7 all around the world. Amen.
thank you,
But
Rick.
how nice is that, Jaime? I think I love the way that even when we started, like you mentioned, Laura, having to be something that is so, if you're broken, there's so many pieces, how much value it is. But I think it's true as I'm hearing to speak from like Ruth and Rick and everyone, because the more we're able to be, broken and being like, sensitive and being able to help others. Like I heard, how Ruth, how you said you went to Optimus and you were helping and you were okay because you would walk to work and then you became that advocate there. And like Rick mentioned how, him and Modesta have been able to like, be an advocate for her kids as well. It is that you become that valuable, you become that guidance and that path, and it is so needed because I think a lot of the times you might feel a little bit alone through the process, but when you're able to like have that conversation with someone and be like, you're not alone, this is the process, and see it and show it, and up to a point, we have to maybe at times maybe even cry together because it's fine, it's normal to have these feelings. So I think it's very rewarding to hear all of you guys because as I mentioned El Cuero, that I was like, oh my God, wow, because it's true. This is like good work that everybody has gone through. Even if we go to the 72s, Rick, or los 82, it's fine. But I think it's true. Like, times have changed, but it seems like all of us have been able to adapt to the times and we still have that servicio that we want to help others and we have that passion. Like, los veo, se siente, even when you're eating the hamburger, Rick.
That's true though, Erica. You touched on some solid points. Like, when I was listening to Rick, there were certain things that, por ejemplo, might have not triggered me, but like I kind of cringed. But then I said, no, this is part of Rick's story. He's sharing with us something that has happened with him in real life.
Mm-hmm.
He's not just saying this to say it, right? Number one, and I think Erika, a really important point that I recently learned is that you know, when I was sharing a part of my story, they were asking me, why did you get into the line of work that you do, right? And everybody was like, because we enjoy helping. And one of the things we might not realize is that we enjoy helping because probably at one point somebody helped us as well climb out of whatever slump we were in. And I think we're kind of broadcasting that together right now as we're all sharing. We're all in this line of work, but we're not just doing it in a selfish way. We're giving back to the community, which is really beautiful. But Manny, you haven't said anything.
I'm in awe, quite frankly. I mean, I thank you, Laura, Ruth, Rick, for sharing that. But it's the only thing that comes to mind to describe it. It's inspiring just hearing you guys talk. And I know we laugh about some of the experiences,
Right.
but the reality is that, like Jaime was saying, these are your stories and they're inspiring. I mean, they're just showing. That's kind of like your resume, really, of life, through this, like they say, the school of life, right? That you've graduated. You guys have all gotten doctorates in the school of life. um,
Right.
but it's even important for all of us.
Yeah.
I know we have this that's being broadcasted to the community in general, but for folks like you and like myself and Erica who work in this field, who are clinicians who work in this field, to hear this, to learn from it, quite frankly. And I'm not embarrassed to say, Laura, I wrote down what you were saying about the use of the broken vase. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
I've never heard that, so I'm writing it down. I did write it down. I'm gonna steal it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna borrow it.
Right.
But
Copyrights.
that in itself was so beautiful, and I've never heard it explained in that way. And again, it fuels that fire of inspiration. So I thank you guys for opening up and sharing that, because I do think we've all had some story to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
but to really hear that and put that and make it real for us, I mean, it makes a major difference.
True. Thank you,
And,
Manny. Thank you.
yeah, and when you're talking about stories, Manny, and all of us, we all have our different stories, and us as Latinos, and just being there, it's like we could talk and talk and talk, and we talk with our hands, and we talk and move on, and it's just like being
What are
comadre,
you talking
compadre.
about?
Yeah.
Exactly. Tú sabes,
Oh, we talk, Ruth. We talk a lot with like chistes
yes,
and we reference
yes,
to things, right? Like
yes,
I think that's part of it that we do, right? But we
Yes.
say we, different adivinanzas and different stuff.
Right. And another thing that I do want to share is just even because we're Latinos, but we're all different. I remember when I first came into the field, and actually that's when I learned when I was at Optimist Boys Home, and then I it was stressful. I couldn't handle these poor boys and these kids being locked up and just being there, and I would advocate for the parents, and a lot of them were Spanish speaking parents, and things were not provided to them in Spanish, and it was like, you have a right to know all these things and have them tell you in Spanish and the whole thing. And even when you're in therapy, yeah, they can't tell you what they said, but you have a right to know what's going to happen, what this place is, because they didn't know how they got there. They were all in shock. So it was interesting. I was just like Miss 411 and try to learn more, and then I would get in trouble. And it's just like, but why? I'm just sharing information, which is what you guys should be doing. And so I was there for like maybe about, I believe, 7 years. I was a single mother at the time, so was for a long time, and I already had my twins. I had gone home. Then I lost my father. My father had passed away, and then so I had to take a break, And then after that, that's when I ended up at Amanecer, which is a community, a provider, and I worked there for 7 8 years, and I started as a receptionist behind the counter for the children's, and I was doing the same thing there and advocating for the parents. And the parents would be waiting there for an hour, and I'd be like, this isn't fair. These poor kids, they have no diapers, we got no snacks here. They're just sitting there doing nothing. They need a TV, they need guidance, they need this in the bathroom, they need this, they need that. And they would ask me, Ruth, like the therapist, like, Ruth, well, how long have they been waiting? And I would call her in and say, well, they've been here for an hour already, and they've been waiting for you, and you're over here overseeing. So I used to advocate. It's like I just try to have, I just knew what it was like to go to have a session, and you're there at 5 o'clock, you're there with one child, you haven't eaten, of course your child's going to act out. So there were a lot of things that, thank God, that I was able to be comfortable enough to voice myself and make a difference and change through that.
Right.
And then the program, and this is where I met Manny, through systems of care, started way back, then. And so
Ooh, way back when.
way back when,
When
when
dinosaurs
dinosaurs
roamed
roamed
the
the earth,
earth.
and.
When my beard used to look like Jaime's beard, it was a different color.
you, you, you
And
know,
it
no, so
go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, it's funny. I had these questions written down that I wanted to ask everybody, but you kind of went into it, right? And I wanted to ask everybody equally, um, about the barriers you encountered, right? Like, what are some of those barriers that you might have encountered receiving services, and some of those things, or trying to obtain services, and some of those things you were mentioning are from your personal experience, knowing how long it takes,
Hmm.
having not to get the right resources, right? Having to sit waiting for an appointment forever. Erica doesn't return your calls. Manny's too busy. He's not listening to you, right? Or Alicia. Alicia didn't give you the right resources, right, Alicia? I think.
Yeah, yeah, you are, and it's so true because listening to Ruth, and having worked with Ruth for 10 years, doing promotoras together, I know a little bit about her story, and I've met her children, beautiful children, um, and her story is unique, and I know that she has a lot to offer, just like everyone else. There's so many accolades to attribute to Rick, to Laura, to Ruth, but it wasn't easy to get to where they're at now, right? Laura and Ruth worked for the Department of Mental Health, Rick Polito, NAMI, and all of these other wonderful things that he has done, but it wasn't easy to get there. So definitely, Ruth, sharing some of your struggles that you had shared with me in the past, the challenges as your kids were growing up and trying to get services for them, and the challenges and how difficult it was for you as a single parent. If you can share a little bit about that, because it
Oh,
would definitely
yeah.
inspire others.
Oh no, thank you, Alisa. And it was because I have always considered myself the working poor. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I'm like right in the middle, but yet I don't qualify for Medi-Cal. But at the same time, it's like I work, but you know what? I need those services that other people can get. I mean, and it's funny you say that because just working within the department. And when the Mental Health Service Act came out in Prop 63, that's where I wanted to say that's the first time I heard the word peer. Because I always saw myself as a parent advocate from the beginning. Always a parent advocate, parent advocate, parent advocate, because I was a parent. And then now I've had to learn how to really adjust and learn how to be a parent peer. And it's like, because one thing I do want to say, I'm not family member. I'm not, because I'm a parent. I'm a family member to my brother who was bipolar but not diagnosed. I am a family member to my father who was depressed and an alcoholic, or other family members, my brothers, my sisters, my siblings, my cousins. But I always want to say that I am a parent advocate and a parent peer. But some of my struggles was when I first came to the department after I worked at a Montessori receptionist. I became the parent advocate for systems of care. Then we started doing wraparound, and then I became a lead, which is supervisor. We were hiring other parent advocates because for me, it was the only one at the time that was me. So we had to get more, and I was able to help with that. So I topped out. So then I ended up going to DMH where I'm at now and worked with promotoras, and I'm doing full service partnership. But during that time, even working with Prop 63, knowing what it's about, fighting what it's about, and my son, and thank you, Manny. I never like personally thanked you because Manny knows my son, my children too. And one time my son was having a meltdown and I was having a meltdown. So I called Manny, go, Manny, can you help me please with my son? It's just like, I don't know if I have to hospitalize him or what. Does he have an idea? So Manny was able to help to do that. And that's when I decided I need to get full service partnership. But it wasn't even easy. Even me within the department, I had to fight to get Tay FSP for my son, who was 16 at the time, having a really, really bad time. And I knew that he needed it. And they said, but Ruth, you have private insurance. I go, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Anybody under the MHSA Prop 63 Mental Health Service Act can receive services. They do not have to have medical. And that's
Yeah.
always been my biggest fight. And and thank God, I'm actually the one who wrote out my son's referral. Okay. And this was when in service here for 7. And it was an agency that picked it up was amazing, Hillsides. And when she came to the house of therapist, she's like, oh my God, I read this referral. Do you know who wrote this referral? And I told them, yeah, I did. She goes, this made me cry. This made me cry. And I go, oh, okay. So it's just like, because I wrote everything and anything. So, anyways, success story, a couple years later, my son, he's doing a whole lot better. He still has issues because he had a football injury. Because of that football injury, he had had 13, 14 surgeries. He ended up getting infections. He ended up getting addicted to pain medication. And we're talking about the fentanyl patches, which is heroin, the opiates, the it was just really, really bad. He was hospitalized for a month for 30 days. I had to keep calling, it just these stories that you hear from your families that when you're working with them, it happened to me. I've had police come here and they would tell him, maybe your mom's crazy. Maybe we need to take her in. She's bipolar. And I'm like,
Ruth,
excuse me, I need your badge number and let me talk to who's on call. I want to talk to the warden. And so it
I
just be
have
like,
to
yeah,
ask you,
go ahead,
Ruth.
Jaime.
I have to ask you, and then I'm gonna pose the same questions to the rest of the group. But I have one question for you. One thing that I'm learning is that we all fall into roles and we take on different roles. And you almost sound like you've taken on the role of a caregiver. I know you're a parent, but you're caring for your children. How are you doing? How are you feeling now? How do you feel? How do you feel better? Do you feel in a better place in terms of like the resources you have? How you like your self-care? I guess that's what I'm asking. How are you feeling?
It's funny how you asked that because that took me a long time to learn.
Yeah,
Long, long time.
yeah.
And it comes from a cultural background too, because my mother never modeled that for me. Her being a mother of 6 really never took care of herself. She never sat at the table to eat with us because she was too busy feeding everybody and doing their homework and doing all that. So I would see her eating, at the on the stove or wherever it was, but we would have actual sit down time. It was difficult for me. It took me a long time. It really took me a long time. I actually, um, when you work in high intensive programs and you do get a break, you get burnout. Actually, I did have a burnout for a while, so that's when I learned I had to start saying no. And but it's taken me a while. But yeah, I do a lot of self care. I go out and get my massages and my manicure, and I don't feel guilty. And that's just started happening a couple of years ago. This pandemic, getting my hair done, getting my nails done, doing things for me. Yeah, it was tough though. It was tough though because my kids still see me as mom, and they're like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm taking care of me." And they didn't really get to see me do that because it was my kids, and they went to private school, so that was another thing that working, taking them to private school, being a single parent. I was married to a serviceman, but that's a whole nother story too because he ended
That'll
up
be
being in that.
the
And
extension.
yeah,
The next episode will be dedicated to Ruth. But I, Ruth,
he
thank
was
you
a
so much.
veteran, so
I
and I
I
had to hospitalize him for suicide, so that's
oh
another.
God. But I
So
did
try,
want to
yeah.
ask either Rick or Laura if they wanted to share maybe some of the barriers that they encountered when trying to access services. And again, I'm not sure if either of you wants to go first. It's totally fine.
Oh, I'll take it. Thank you.
All right, Laura.
Well, I've been working all my life, and if I haven't been creating new businesses, I've always been in the nonprofit field. And one of the things that as we were talking earlier, you said we could challenge you. You said that someone, that at one point someone must have helped us in order for us to go into this field, and that's not true for me. My truth is different, and that's what I love about the multiple truths, because your experience may be different, but we still can respect and support and help each other. And for me, it was the lack of help that I did not get. That's why I came into this field, because I wanted to be an agent of change. Like having a CIA, all that stuff. I'm a DMH, agent of change. But and
Good.
no, and for me, because I worked, like Ruth said, if we qualified for the services, we have to be able to qualify for certain services, right, to get the help. But if when I qualified for the services, my emergency was not their emergency. When I saw myself in a crisis, I would go crying with mocos everywhere saying, I need help. They're like, well, we can schedule you in 3 months. And like, no, this is my emergency. And I started learning bad coping mechanisms. And those bad coping mechanisms had me multiple arrest and arrest and arrest and arrest, because I was a cutter. People did not know how to handle cutters, right? You must be crazy. Okay, let's stick you here. Let's stick you there. And but no one would help me. And all I had to do, I got the routine. All I had to do is say, I promise I will not cut myself anymore. And their arrest word, that's it. I still was not getting the help because that was not an emergency. It was not a cry for help. And it wasn't. For me, that was how I coped. And it's a big issue with the release. And, we're not going to go over what it did for me. But for me, once, because I didn't qualify for Medi-Cal, I had to go through my own insurance, which is fine. But they did not have the faith-based therapist that I needed. So when I would tell someone my husband's beating me up, they were like, "Well, you're stupid for still hanging around." That's not what someone in a faith wants to hear. They want to say, "Hey, listen, what does your faith say about that?" Turn it around and have me think about it and stuff like that. So I would not go back to the therapist. I'm like, okay, nope, check on this guy. So I would complain to the insurance company and say, hey, this person is not doing anything for me. Until I learned that even though you have any insurance, and if they don't have a self-based therapist, they can go to that insurance company has to pay for a safe base outside of the network. So that's where I started becoming an advocate, and okay, let me help you how to do it. Let me help you how to do this, because I've experienced atrocities in the mental health field. And when I did get the services, I'm a working person. You want me to come, miss work? I'm a single parent with 3 children, and you want me to sit here for 2 hours, an hour and a half to see the therapist and the psychiatrist in the same day, because I can't make multiple appointments because I have a job to fulfill and get paid and pay my bills. And if they did have services for us, like support groups, the support groups are for people who are not working. What about me? What about people who are working? And they couldn't. They'd like, well, I'm sorry, and I would get snappy and say, so you want me to quit my job so that I could come and sit down and get the help that I need? So I learned to save all my vacation time, my sick time, and everything, and schedule my breakdowns accordingly. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this 2 weeks and do outpatient clinic and stuff because the system was failing me. For working individuals, the system is not equipped to help you after hours. You need to have your breakdowns from Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4:30, 3:30 tops. Because if you're walking in that door at 3:30, we're saying, ah, no, we're not taking any more appointments. Okay, so then that means as soon as the sun comes up, I need to figure out where to go, what to do. The weekend, long weekend, especially 4-day weekends. Oh my God, okay. I need to have a plan. I need to figure out what I'm gonna do. And what face am I gonna give those kids over there? All three of my children, they're in their late 20s, early 30s. And part of my trauma was that I was married off at 15 because of my father's belief. It was pre marriage arrangement, and I was taken to Vegas to get married, and he was a military guy. So I was a military wife for 12 years. Before 19, I had already three kids. So, that's part of, you have to impregnate them to keep them there and stuff like that. But even so, it was hard for me to get the services that I need. So when I finally got out of those situations, I decided I wanted to come and help people just like me, help them put that little shine of gold into that brokenness and stuff like that. I wanted to help mend them, find their resources and stuff. And for most of my life, I've been either in workforce development, assisting individuals with disabilities and multiple barriers to employment, including incarceration, because that's what, I didn't know any tools. So all I need is slash, 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 jail, 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 and you still didn't get the help. You were just put into a jail cell. And I was lucky because I was in San Diego. And San Diego, they have the little jails where you get McDonald's. You don't get county food. But still, and what happens to you now that you want to find employment? You have a huge record because you did not know any good coping mechanisms. You're a good person, just nobody was there to help you, and the help that was there to be given wasn't the adequate one because you fell through the loop, you fell through the holes. Yeah, so yeah, I learned even now. I still kind of teach, hey guys, if we're not working in DMH, if you're not have a job over there, you have to save your medical time, your vacation time, and things like that. And schedule your little breakdowns when you can. And that's sad. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hey, Laura, that's amazing, man. I mean, wow. I have to
Wow.
tip my hat to you because you've been through a lot, and look how resilient and look how beautiful where you're at now, man. That's just a good feeling to see folks in peer recuperation. I guess my biggest barrier, and I'll be short and sweet, I hope, pocos palabras, was myself. My barrier was I was a machito guy. I was born and raised there, in the barrio. And my dad, he came from Jalisco, and he then, being macho and whatnot. That's how it was in those days. And you pick up on your family's, folk ways and the way that they bring you up. But what happened to me is, I got educated. I went to Berkeley. I got my degree. I was the first one in my family, and I was real proud. I said, hey, we're gonna change things up here, right? And but I still was Ricardo Ricky inside. I still had a lot of trauma, a lot of stuff happening, and I had great times. I went to Mexico every year, rode my horses, swam in the lakes. My dad took us a carne asada, pescado asado, ahí en la Chapala Lake every summer. I lived in Mexico for 3 months out of the year when it was. My dad loved his. We have a ranch over to this day in Jalisco, and I can go there anytime. My tios are my dad's in heaven with mom, but it's our ranch. It's a Polito ranch, and my tios they all have it. It's a huge 40, 50 acre ranch, right? And so I had good life. Don't think it was all. I'm giving you guys the barriers so that you could see how the light has come to Rick, Polito, the one and only right here today. How did I make it? I decided, well, once my kids see, when I said I was in denial, and my biggest barrier was me, was when my daughter had her, Gracie had her first break, And that was because she came from San Diego State and she was smoking meth. And Modesta and I didn't know what to do. What the hell's going on? She comes home from break at Christmas and she was crawling the walls and writing on the walls and spray painting stuff. And I'm going, wait, something's going on here. She goes, I have to go back. I have to go study for my exams. That you're on break right now. She got, I know, but I'm going to study for my next year's exams. And she would, her little head was all over because she was smoke. She was on that meth. So I was in denial once we got treatment for her. When she went to jail, she literally went to Chowchilla for a few years because that's how deep she got. But I'd go visit her. Modesta and I would go on the bus from St. Cyprian, right there in Long Beach. Take the free bus up there every 2 weeks or whenever they had it, and then we go on our own when we could too, for visiting me, Gracie. But I was in denial. I said, no, man, I'd pray to the Virgin. I'm a very religious Catholic man. But the machismo came out of me, and I said, no. Well, that's because we got to get educated. We got to do something, Ricardo. This is not going away. Then Ricky, while she was in jail, Ricky did his thing. He followed her footsteps and got high, and then he had a break, and he was at Delamo Hospital. First, he was at UCLA Harbor Psych Ward. If you ever been there, 15 years ago, well, 12 years ago, literally, it was a whole different ballgame from what it is today. I mean, their psych ward and things that I saw, I was like, whoa, eye opener. And I said, no, my son he doesn't belong here. Something's wrong with the system. The sheriffs would come over and they say, just like what Ruth said, like, hey, Polito, maybe you should go too because you're pretty hyper. And I go, well, I'm high strung. I get it from the DNA from my mom. She's from New York. And we're all a little bit bipolar. Let's put it that way. But we know the difference from what I think I get a rubber band. And by the way, I have one here today. And I do this in my NAMI class tonight. We're having a class. Ruth knows this because she took Familia Familia. And I say, you could do this a million times, but one day it snaps. And that's the same way as the little brain. Our brains are so fragile. They're the most intricate organ in our bodies, next to our heart, of course, corazón. But and when they see that and I do that little demonstration, that's Rick Polito. When I snapped and woke up, if you will, because I prayed to the Virgin, and that's what keeps me. I don't take meds. I do a little therapy here and there. I live my life. My wife and I, we have just a jovial, great life, right? But my meditations, my walking on the beach, working out, going places, we have money, we could do things. That keeps me my equilibrium, my level-headedness, I guess. But when my kids all snapped and they had their thing, I had to realize this is not going to get prayed away. This is not going to go away with only faith. Faith is the foundation, but you got to get educated. You got to become the peer, the pyramid, and that takes faith. It takes education and the family foundation where everybody's involved with it. So what I did was Modesta found NAMI online and we started taking classes with Dr. Stansbury. Just by taking those classes, my eyes opened up and my heart said, wow, this is mental health. Welcome to the world. It's a lifetime commitment, just like marriage. You're welcome to the membership. It's lifetime commitment, right? And so once I took NAMI saved us in that capacity. I became an advocate. I became a director of outreach. I've done everything in NAMI. California conferences. Some of you know the conferences, national conferences. I've been all over the country now, being the Latino advocate, the Mexicano, Mexican American that I call myself. The person who could speak up and say, this is my story. I went in front of folks up there in Seattle, 5,000 people at a big auditorium. We were all eating dinner, and they gave me 3 minutes. And people said, "Let him speak. Let him go on," because I was hitting the nerve centers and saying, "This is what we need right now. This is how we're going to change." NAMI, a grassroots agency, you got to lighten up. You got to wake up. Like Ruth was saying with Optimist Home, I saw a lot of injustices. I saw a little racism there. I saw stuff that was just dragging. And so I said, "Hey, take it or leave it. This is me, man. I'm gonna say it from the heart, but I'm also got lived experience now, and I got education. I know what I'm talking about. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we were the innovators. We were the NAMI Español. I created that concept here in LA County, and back with Dr. Southern, and thank God we have Dr. Sharon now. NAMI is one of the probably strongest advocacy groups out there, grassroots orientated, and that's what helped me break that barrier, accept and get away from the denial, get away from the machismo, and say, you know what? It's okay. Be myself. I could cry. I could let it out. I could literally feel other people's pain, and I could just tell you in a nutshell, that barrier is gone. I don't let artificial barriers get in my life no more at all. I say, hey, amen to to DMH, devoted to mental health healing. And I say amen to all of our providers and our advocates out there, and to all of my brothers and sisters here today that are hearing our story. For those folks that are hearing us for the first time, wow, I hope we're touching their hearts and their minds, because this is it, baby. We're in it together. And we don't know. Today we're here. Tomorrow we don't know. So let's do the best, and God will do the rest. And I'm telling to all my brothers and sisters right now, especially you, my compadres, my canalismos, and my hermanitas. I love you guys. You guys are beautiful. You guys are from the heart. You guys, we know what we're talking about, and we know what we're living, because that's what it's about. And we work not for the money; it's for the passion and for giving back. So I could say that was it. Now I'm a free man. Yay!
That's
God,
beautiful.
thank you.
It's interesting, right? So we started this conversation, and one of my first questions was to tell me what you guys and ladies, I apologize, how you identified or what you felt the word peer community member meant. And the understanding that I have now of that word is that a community member or a peer is an individual who has either had an experience, right? That feels that they may or may not need help, but as I guess that experience, right? Maybe in some point of our life we've experienced some type of trauma that has now led us in a path, in a spiral, right?
Mm-hmm.
We lose control of ourselves. And then so the next question, which again Rick already kind of answered, I wanted to know, what was that one resource that really helped us all out? One day I'll share more about my own personal story, but I want to know, what was that one resource that really helped out? And I know, I'm not sure if anybody else wants to chime in, Erica, Manny, Alicia. I know last time we had more of a conversation, but feel free to chime in at any point, guys. And my words, I'm not speaking with my hands. Okay, I just do what I do. I can't help it.
I know. We all do that. I'll answer your question, just to kind of like go. I know for me, I always thought I was alone. And then I met the DMH parent advocates, which was Tina Mata, Carmen Diaz, Carmen Baltazar, um, Becky, and the list goes on. And these are people who were working in systems of care. So when I became a parent advocate, these were the people that I turned to, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm not alone. So I'm not the only parent that goes through this and stuff. So I got to meet and learn and grow. But I think that one agency, just like Rick says that he found on me, I found they're still not around. I mean, they were around, but I met the parent advocates. They were in Sacramento, so they always helped us and stuff. So, and right now my mind went blank. I can't even remember their name anymore because I haven't talked about them in so long, and I feel so bad.
It'll
But
come
they
back to you.
always,
It'll come back.
yeah, and because and that's where too where I met Manny, because we used to do Kamasi all the time, and it was
Oh,
organ,
Macy's, yeah.
yeah, and because I was the beginning of the children's, and I remember Kamasi. Oh, because yeah, I was blessed with an award. I got an Advocate of the Year award because during that time, not only was I working with systems of care and wraparound and doing, but I used to take families and parents with me to Kamasi. I would get them free scholarships. I would have them take their kids. I would guide them and hold them and do all that. So, oh, I remember United Advocates of Children and Family, UACF. That's who it was. And that was my guide and my support for parent advocates, because from the people who answered the phone to the director, which God rest in peace, Oscar Wright, he passed away a couple of years ago. He was an amazing man. He worked a lot with also with Cal Mesa and um, the MHSA OC, which is Mental Health Service Tax Oversight and Accountability, Prop 63. Through them, I actually got to go to Sacramento. I met Pat Hawkins, the mothers of UACF who created it. I was very lucky that even though it was the first time they had parent advocates and this was all new for me, it was new for them. I was given the green light to really advocate and go on these trips to speak for the families. But getting back to systems of care and just really knowing my piece and learning that I was an advocate and I could do it was when I went to Sacramento. We took hearts. I remember this, man. You remember when the assistants of care families did hearts? saying that we still
Yeah.
wanted to keep this family systems of care because they were going to cut the funding. So we went, and my hearts were all in Spanish. So the delegate, the guy, the assemblyman, whoever we were talking to, only did English. I read my hearts in Spanish, and I got an interpreter for him, for them to interpret it to him. So everything, this was my area. These are my gentes, mis padres. So I did all that. So that's when and I did that. They're like, don't do that. I'm like, why? They need to hear the voice, and the voice de mi gente. I have to do it in Spanish. So if he doesn't
Yes.
understand, then he needs the interpreter. So
Right.
that's when I caught the bug. And ever since then, you really can't just shut me up. So it's like, Ruth, speak up. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. No me da vergüenza. I'll tell you. I'll tell you what the room is thinking, but not saying. I'll be that voice because I do that. So, and I think that, going back to that question, Jaime, is that's where it was United Advocates of Children and Family and learning. It wasn't that. And the good story about that, actually, one of the parents that worked there, her name was Cindy Coughlin, UACF. I took my daughter one time and her son, and they're happily married now. So
Oh
it's just
wow.
like, yeah. So
Wow.
California is big. There's stories behind the stories of the stories. Believe me, there's out there. So it's good because I don't have to explain my daughter to them. They know her, they see her, they have that. So, I thank him every day, my son in law, for marrying my daughter. And we tell him you can't return her. That's just a Latina thing. Sorry, you got to keep her. So, but yeah, you just meet all these other parents that I got to work with. I got the award for United for the Parent Partner of the Year. I also worked with. I was on the commission with Client Family Leadership Committee, so I got to do that. Being that parent voice is what being. So I really enjoy doing all that on that bigger advocacy from the grassroots to Sacramento because I see that it can be done from here to there. So that's another part of my story, and there's so much more.
That's awesome.
Erica, Laura, I don't want to hug it up.
That's okay. Thank you. Um, for me, I think, you know, definitely one of the things that has helped me was the first and foremost is finding someone that would listen to me, listen to what had happened to me, not who I was or my brokenness was. And so finding a therapist that him and I or she and I would match, having that relationship so that I could be honest and open about my struggles. And so definitely for me that was the number one key. um and I never knew, I knew that there were other people like me because I would see them sitting in the sitting room waiting for my doctor, right? But I no one ever shared their story. So for me, the sharing of the stories is so valuable and so important because when we come together and as we're sharing stories, either we're learning new tools. As we evolve in our recovery, the tools that we had no longer work. So we need to constantly continue to evolve with the tools that we use. And we get that from hearing other people's stories, right? To see what they use, what they don't use, what works, what doesn't work. And each step is, for me, I take it as a milestone. It's, one step here, one step there. And another thing, what helped me realize is that neuroplasticity, the experiences change our brain, depending on the trauma that we encounter. But as we recover and we use those tools, our neuroplasticity happens again, right? We start healing, we start seeing at things differently. So, um, but it all started with that one person that heard you, heard your voice, heard your pain without judgment, um, and had the same faith, belief, ethics, and morals. Whatever you're looking for, that person was there. So, like Jaime was saying earlier, dos oídos, una boca, two ears, one mouth. So we listen twice than what we talk, right? But that for me, that's something that was very important. Also, learning how to self advocate. If you know that you know that you know that what the person is telling you and it doesn't jive with your beliefs, then find someone that can hear you. Um, On December 23rd, I kept feeling a sharp pain. And I'm thinking, okay, am I having an anxiety attack? I didn't think about a heart attack. I thought about anxiety attack. So when I kept going to the to urgent care was like, well, just go to the emergency room. And I said, no, it's not an anxiety attack, because the first thing they did was look to see at what medical condition is. And they're like, well, it's probably an anxiety attack. So right there, they're already stereotyping me. And I'm like, no, it's not an anxiety. It doesn't feel that. Well, do you have pain in your jaw and your neck? No, no, no. So I went home and I cried. And I said, should I go to the emergency room? I'm going to go to the emergency room. And the first thing I said is, I understand I have anxiety. This is not anxiety. This is something. They're like, well, they were sending me home and they were going to give me Xanax. I said, no, listen, I have bottles and bottles. I don't want to medicate. It has nothing to do with that. And I said, I'm sorry. I need a second opinion. I need another doctor. And then I told the nurse, please, please, have this. Can you be here? I need for you to listen to me. I told the doctor, there is something wrong with me. I keep having these pains. So the doctor said, fine. They checked, they gave me an EKG, and there was nothing wrong. But my levels showed that there had been um, something was off in my blood levels. So then they sent me to CT. Well, they found an aneurysm, and they're saying that my aneurysm is big enough for for it to be an emergency. However, due to COVID, they cannot operate right now, so I'm on standby. But if I hadn't pushed and I hadn't pushed, and here I am, so right now I'm not allowed to lift, to bend, or do certain things. So if I had gone home crying, like, no me están haciendo caso, cleaning, because that's what I do. I clean, move furniture, as Mexicans. My abuelita told me, quita el diablo debajo de la cama. That means move your furniture to get the dust bunnies out. So I would have done that. I would have pushed my bed. And here's the pushing and the shoving. My aneurysm could have bursted. Nobody would have known what happened to me until the biopsy, right? I mean, the autopsy. So my point is self-advocate for you. If you know that there's something wrong, have someone listen to you, and just, I can't emphasize enough how having that person share your story is gonna help you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. That's awesome. I've realized that we're spending, of course, a lot of time on this. So I really wanted to open it up to everybody to chime in, Manny, Erica. I did want to say though that, what I have learned, because I've been learning from listening to everyone, is that there is a silver lining, right? We started off in a rough place. It was hard to find services, but now look at where you are all at. I consider you all successful individuals. I know Rick. I just met Laura, and I've known Ruth for a while. I used to see Ruth at the health neighborhood meetings. And she's right. She's been an advocate since I remember. When I met Rick, Rick's always presented as a very strong, very knowledgeable individual person. And Laura, I can't say enough fantastic things about you. Do you know what I'm saying? But I guess what I'm saying is that you guys are a silver lining, like for other individuals who might find themselves in this particular situation or in similar situations as those that you guys have experienced, I guess you could say there is hope, right? Because you guys are the proof that there's hope. And even though sometimes you might find yourself in rough situations again or patches, you continue to develop your tools, right? Uh, my analogy I would have said was a system update. You need to update your drivers, right? We need new tools. You update your drivers. You do whatever it is you need to do to move yourself on to that next level of recovery. To move yourself on so
Mhm.
you can help your loved ones. Because now,
Right.
in my particular case, I have a little one. I have a family, so I can't allow myself to fall into this nest. But if I do, I know that there are system updates that I can do to help me move forward. But again, enough with me. Manny,
Yes.
Erika, Alicia, anybody, any last words?
I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think I'm just. Go ahead,
go ahead,
Manny.
Erica. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I think like Manny said it earlier. I think for me it's just what an honor to hear you guys. And thank you so much because I know it takes a lot to being able to share it, but I also know there's a healing process for it too. And I think for me, it's an honor to also listen to each little anécdota, historia, because I'm very mindful of that, like just the details and stuff. And I'm very thankful, I think, to being able to like be part of it and to also being able to see that in little aspects, such great advocates, guerreros, guerreras, like, no me voy, tengo muchas pastillas en la casa and you're not going to send me home. And, it takes a lot to you to do that at the emergency room. And it takes a lot, like you mentioned, Ruth, going to like, state, to Sacramento and being like, now you have to read it. So figure it out. Here's a heart, it's in Spanish. And I think for Rick, like, being able to say, oh my God, I might be the one that needs to work on it when I've been one to like point to everyone to how about do this. So thank you so much. It's been nothing but an honor. And I could see, like right now that Jaime mentioned, I could see that we have 3 here great, stories that you guys shared with us, but I can only imagine how many people have been touched, even by listening by this podcast, but through the journey of you guys. So impressive. Like Manny said earlier, I'm speechless.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I do think. I mean, again, thank you for sharing your stories. But as we're sitting here, I realize, yeah, I'm supposed to be a part of this podcast, but I feel more like I'm one of the listeners because I'm taking it all in. These amazing stories that you're sharing. It's like I have to be quiet. I have to silence myself to make sure that I'm absorbing all of this and taking all of this in because it's I know from it's different from your perspective having lived it and gone through this and still going through it, but sharing it with us, and I put myself in that category as well. It's inspiring. It really is, and it's motivating. And I hope that as folks are listening to this, that they're getting that because it truly is. Each of your stories is very inspirational and it's very motivating. And I know some of you for many years, some for a few years, some getting to know just now. But even that doesn't matter how long I've known you. Hearing your story, I'm getting to know a different part of you. I feel like I'm much more in tune with some of your history and who you are as a person. And the biggest thing I took out of this is I appreciate the questions that Jaime was asking, but you all identified the different programs or services and what helped you motivate you. But the biggest thing I took from all of this was that it seems like it started with each one of you taking that first step and really, whether it's moving yourself and your own crianzas, your own things that you were taught, moving that out of the way and moving past it, or taking that first step to really reaching out and asking for help, or just telling people to shut up and listen to you because nobody knows you better than you. And again, that in itself is very inspiring. And I thank you guys for sharing that with all of us. Like I said, it truly has been very important and touching for me as well. So I appreciate everything, folks.
Alicia?
You know, just listening to your stories, I think about what Rick said when he went to that conference and there was 5,000 people there and he only had 3 minutes to speak and people are saying, okay, no, let him talk. We want to hear. We want to keep hearing his story. Just hearing your stories, Ruth, Laura, Rick, it's, again, it's like we can listen to you all day, tell your stories. They're so inspiring. I thank you so much for sharing your struggles, your journey, your success, and I think one thing, Laura, that you touched on, it's true, we are our worst enemies. And we are hard on ourselves. And I like what you said, you have to advocate for yourself and take that step. And now what you do, what Ruth does, what Rick, does is advocate for those that may be struggling with their voice, right? That may be struggling to seek that help, and just to know that there's people like you out there willing to help, willing to put those boots on, and willing to push those people to come on. You know what? There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. You just have to want it really bad. And I am here to help you do that. And so I applaud each and every one of you for the great work that you're doing, continue to do, being great advocates for the communities that you live in and for those that are struggling for whatever reason, it could be the stigma associated with mental health, it could be the medical issues, insurance issues, that there are people like you that they can connect with, and you are going to take them, through each and every single step, navigating the systems that you all know were hard to access. So I applaud you and I thank you so much for sharing your stories, your personal stories. And I hope, like Manny said, that for those that are listening, that this inspires you, that if you know you need the services, go get them. Don't let nothing stop you. And if you get stuck along the way, if you reach a speed bump, there's going to be people like Laura, people like Ruth, and people like Rick to help you out, and us. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Great said, Alisa, beautiful. And yeah, definitely just to end it, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come on here and share with us a little bit of your story. I wanted to make this a special place where everybody felt comfortable. And I think that was my agenda. So I wanted to make each and every one of you feel comfortable enough to share some of your story and know that we're truly listening and we really care. And just to highlight that in life there's downfalls, there's ups and downs, but things typically tend to turn out okay, so I'm glad you guys are all here. We're all strong. I'm glad everybody's joining us for this second episode of Coffee with a Side of Healing. I'm excited for the third episode. So just a quick reminder in terms of obtaining services, if you or your loved ones feel the need to receive services, you are going to find our QR code, which is going to pop up at the end of this meeting, or it might have just popped up now, and the phone numbers that you could see behind Manny's banner, the 800 DMH helpline. Please reach out. Please contact us, and we'll be there to support you. Again, you might talk to me, you might talk to Ruth, you might talk to Laura, you might talk to Manny, because we're all very accessible and available. But again, we're just here. And again, thank you all for joining us. And I hope you had a wonderful experience at our second episode. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
God
Everyone,
bless you
have
guys.
a great day.
And
Thank
happy Valentine's Day,
Everybody be
everybody.
safe and be
you very
kind.
much.
Right.
Give a hug. Let's give a little virtual hug. All right. Más y amor por vida. Enjoy life. God bless you.